Welcome to the Next Level Casino Careers Show, a series highlighting industry tips and insights from the best minds in the casino and hospitality industry. Enjoy the show.
Erica Kosemund, how are you doing today?
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. I'm so excited to have you on the show here today. We were talking a little bit before we started this recording. I've just respected from afar, and a lot of things during these interviews, we learn that leaders in our industry grab resources and inspiration from other vehicles. What I mean by that is outside of the casino and hospitality industry. But I could just say, me personally, Choctaw and some of the efforts that you guys have done is one of those resources in the casino hospitality space that does things different. And I mean that from a marketing and brand perspective. They do things different. It breaks the clutter. So we'll talk about that. But just to start, the Senior Director of Gaming, Brand, and Partnerships, I know you're busy. So just thank you for taking the time and sharing your story today.
Of course. I love this platform you've started. It's awesome.
Thank you, Erica. So just to start, we like to warm up with, let the audience know who you are and what you do, what we call the origin story, 3 to 4 minutes, where you grew up, what your interests were, kind of what got you into the industry, and ultimately what you do today. So if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, awesome. So Erica Kosemund, I've been in the industry around 17 years now. So my entire career I've spent in and around gaming in some capacity. I actually was raised in Arkansas, didn't know much about tribal gaming or tribal casinos or really gaming at all, besides my first flight ever was to Vegas. So that was probably telling. But then I moved to Oklahoma to go to college. And that's really when I started getting introduced to tribal organizations, tribal gaming, really tribes as a whole and the tribal people. You would think that being one state away, I would have more of an introduction to that, but I really didn't. So during college, one of my friends who was tribal said, "Hey, my tribe is hiring for an event coordinator." And at that time, I really wanted to be in radio and entertainment. And she's like, "I don't want it, but would you want it?" And I said, "Yeah, that's great." And so I was still in college when I started doing, grassroots event marketing, event coordinating, back in the mid 2000s. And, I was at that tribe for a little bit. And then the other tribe that I spent quite a long while at, opened a large resort and really came saying like, "Hey, we're looking for eager marketers." And here we are. Spent over a decade at that casino tribe, very respectable tribe, taught me a lot. And then had an opportunity to join Choctaw right at 6 years ago now. So I'm here. And what's funny is I think I always knew that I wanted to be a marketer. I remember like planning events for my friends and always, even like when you're a kid and run for like student body, like it was always a production for me. It was never just like, here's a flyer, here's a smiley face. It was always a slogan. And I remember I grew up in a really rural town in Arkansas and there wasn't many people to look up to, right? And so now looking back, I always knew I wanted to do marketing, but I couldn't pinpoint what that was and what that looked like. So I got a degree in PR because at that point, PR was just a really strong buzzword and that's what you did. And now, just being introduced to so many facets of marketing, it's just really telling that I can always tell that that's what I wanted to do. To present, I reside in Texas. I have 2 little kids, 9 and 4, a girl and a boy. And I'm married to a drug investigator. And he always has better stories than me. And when we're at parties, and like I said, we live in Texas and we've been married a long time and we love Texas. We love Oklahoma, just this whole region we're in. So it's been a really rewarding journey to get to this point.
Erica, I love it. And I wrote down so many good notes there. I want to come back to the family side in a minute, but you said something interesting there because I've learned just talking to different people who want to pivot in their career, or maybe people who think they might be interested in marketing, right? You said, looking back, you can kind of see how it all fit and see that, well, maybe that interest was always there. So if you wouldn't mind, for those out there watching or listening today who might be thinking, I want to get in marketing. I think it's creative, right? Maybe I want to do some promotions. Or what have you learned over the course of your career of what you thought marketing was to what it actually is, and maybe help provide some insight on what you've learned from so much time now spent in marketing. Any misconceptions or things you've learned that you would caution people, or maybe on the other side, the opportunities? Kind of speak to that if you wouldn't mind, because I think that's interesting.
I'll start with the misconceptions, right? Like when people tell me, oh, I want to work in marketing because it's fun. It's always kind of a red flag for me, because I know it's absolutely fun and it's super fulfilling and rewarding. But there's so many facets of it, right? And I think that's one thing to know is like, no matter what your skill set is, you probably have a fit in marketing, because between creatives, copywriters, people that are reviewing contracts and legal, people that are, doing analytics, people that are buying media, there's so many, from super creative all the way to super analytical ways to be in a marketing position where you're actually providing a lot of value. And I think that's one of the most encouraging things is that, you can be in marketing and you can start somewhere. And if you're interested in something, your pathway can lead you there, because there's probably a fulfillment point that you can get to that's already happening, and that's someone you can learn from and do. And I think that's the incredible part of marketing, is that there's always something to touch on that someone from really any career could join.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There's so many different facets of marketing, and you spoke so great to that, whether that's the analytics side, database, player development, sales, the creative branding side, contracts, it just on and on and on. And from your story, right, if I had your story right, I believe you started as a promotions coordinator or a coordinator within marketing, and now you're the senior director of brand and partnerships. High level, what made that journey possible for those who kind of want to maybe are just getting started in marketing, or their career still 1 to 2 years in? What made that possible, that journey to be in the position you're at today?
Yeah, you sent over some sample questions, and I thought that maybe one of them. So actually, that's one I actually gave some thought to about, like thinking back, what are some like pivotal moments that were really important to me that like got me here. And, of course, if you're talented and you work hard and you say yes to things, that's one thing. But I also think back to people who really took an invested interest in me and said, no, you're going to try this. And you may not like it, but we know you can try it. I really had some influential general managers early in my career. One funny story is, I was early in my career, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, maybe gaming isn't for me. And I went out and I got a job with Kraft selling cheese, like a sales rep selling cheese. And so I went in and I was like, I think I'm going to go try this. And my GM just said, no, I'm not accepting this. Like, gaming's meant for you. And I think back to that moment, like that probably really changed the trajectory maybe of my life, of what I'm doing now. And so I think, being able to give that back when people say, am I doing it? Is this where I want to be? Thinking back to moments like that, or, I was doing promotions and my GM came to me and said, if you're going to be successful long-term, this was another GM, said, if you're going to be successful long-term, you're going to learn analytics and you're going to do it for a year. You're going to know the ins and outs of it, because it's important to whatever your next step is. You may not do it forever, but you're going to do it for a little bit. And so I think back to those like really pivotal points of, wow, okay, that looks interesting, or that looks fun, and people really supporting that. And I think that's important to just, as you're saying, what do I want to do with my career? It's not always going to be forever, but do things that look interesting, do things that kind of scare you a little bit and make you go, I think I could really make an impact here. And so I really, that's really how I got to Choctaw. I was like, I really think I can help and have an impact. And that job sounds really exciting. And so, from promotions to here, that's kind of the short version of how it all came to be.
I love what you said there. You kind of have to lean into what scares you, because ultimately that's where growth happens, right? If you're always doing stuff that makes you comfortable, you're not expanding, you're not growing as an individual and also in your career. 2006 to 2022 for our industry, that you've spent, there's loyalty there, right? So if you had to sum up what's kept you in this industry and so passionate and the leader that you are, kind of what has fueled your fire to stay passionate about this industry?
I mean, I feel like everybody should be envious of gaming a little bit, because there's so many cool things we should do. When I look at other industries, I'm like, but gaming touches all of that. They touch the hospitality, they touch the sector, the private sector, whatever it is, there's a piece for that in gaming. And so the fact that we're always evolving, changing, casinos in general are always getting better. New technologies happening, sports betting's coming along in many states. the involvement in sports and hospitality, and becoming really like, whether it's tribal or commercial, like world-class leaders in the hospitality industry is super at a top level engaging to be excited about, and keeps me always like interested. But also gaming, though, although it may seem big when you enter it, it's really small. And, there's so many like valued relationships here. The idea of leaving gaming and not continuing to develop like great relationships, both inside my organization and outside of it, I would just hate to have that something we'd walk away from.
Absolutely. You said something there that a past guest has talked about, Laura Fernandez. She works at SXM Media. And I asked her, I said, what is the misconceptions or things that you were surprised about when you started to work more closely with this industry? And she said how kind the people were.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. That's what's amazing. Not to say that I didn't think they were kind, but just how hospitable people are in this industry. There seems to be, we all understand the need for mentorship and to bring others along. And what's amazing is through this platform, as I connect with more individuals, I kind of hear that echoed over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, when you look at the relationships you've built, and, whether you call them mentors or friends or people that you can lend an ear to, so many of those people, I think across, if you ask a lot of people that have been in this industry a long time, people they now consider close friends and confidants all started in gaming. Right. And so that's really, I think, a special kind of like magic thing to have.
And Erica, that's a common question that we get through this platform is, how do I find a mentor, or any tips to finding a mentor as you look back at your career? And then probably, I'm sure you help mentor others. Any tips you can provide that end if somebody's just wanting to have more resources and more relationships to help build their career?
A couple things come to mind. Mentors, people have very developed thoughts on mentors, right? Like they either think it's a great thing or they don't want to be called a mentor. And I think, just those unique developing relationships, if they start at like a organic level, you're like, hey, that's someone, maybe you were sitting in a meeting with them, right? And said, hey, like you just said some really insightful things. I'd like to know more about what you do. I'd like to know more about where you come from. I think things like that, it may not be your mentor, but it may give you something that can start a platform and a relationship that grows into something amazing. I was actually just talking to someone the other day, who's developing in their career. And I said, you've got to be able to be an advocate for people when they're not in the room. And I think if you look around and see people that have gotten to where they are, they have advocates behind closed doors that they may have not even known about. People were advocating on their behalf because of their work or their work ethic or their, how good they were. And maybe that wasn't, something they even made known, but you have to identify those people and really protect them at all costs and continue to evolve and elevate those people and, call it mentorship, call it, advocacy, call it, lean in relationships. I think those are all just important. And I think it's important to the person to just identify what works for them.
I love that. And I love that you kind of dissected kind of how we say it, right? Mentorship. And it's just peeling that back and really looking at it as a relationship.
Yeah.
Just being a good friend or a good coworker. And I think you're 100% right. I know I'm guilty of this. And sometimes you forget to say that true validation of somebody, like, you're doing a great job, and not just a generic great job. Like, I truly see what you're doing, and here's how you're bringing value to the team. Yeah. I think that goes a long ways. And I love that you hit on that, because I think if you do that over and over and over again, good things are going to happen for you. And organically, you're going to have mentors and you're going to push that way organically. So,
yeah. And I think another thing, when I think about like pivot points in my career, getting involved in Global Gaming Women, which I know your organization is a big part of, I really did that between me and a coworker. We did it on our own, right? It was something we kept seeing on LinkedIn. It was something we just saw more interest in. And, that is a great resource for me now with really developed relationships outside of my current organization, right, that still work in the industry. And that platform sometimes just for communication, conversation, I want to just pick your brain or twist your ear on what's happening or what you think would be a good idea. I think is invaluable, and I think that organization has set a platform up for many women to say, like, how do I grow my network when it doesn't seem easy or organic? How what's a first step for me?
Yeah.
So I would say that's definitely a pivot point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And other guests have mentioned the impact, and I know here Global Gaming Women is huge. I mean, right now I think we're doing a suit drive. It affects the community in so different ways, not only just the resource for people to build their careers, and then also just the community work. Erica, coming back to marketing, you talked about evolution and change. I think to succeed in this industry, you have to know that's part of the deal. But looking back now, 26 to 2022, just high level nuggets. How have things evolved and changed in the casino marketing space from when you first entered to 2022 and beyond?
We laugh about this sometimes. I was in that really sweet spot where we still did paper tickets, and I was in promotions. And so I remember the huge gold hoppers were so big that we had to have like security help us turn them to like find winners, and just to think back, that really, in my mind doesn't seem like very long ago. But if someone printed a paper ticket today, I mean, people would look at you like you were an alien. They'd be like, what do you want me to do with this? Now, the technology that's evolved with, player systems and player data and things like that are just, I know sometimes gaming as an industry, we beat ourselves up that we're not as far in advance as, what we'd want to be or we should be. But I mean, taking it back 15, 16 years where we're still using paper, it just makes me laugh sometimes. We talk about that sometimes here. Remember those days we were just pushing those hoppers around and moving them from place to place. So I just think, and then the involvement of social media and, the touch points of the guests and their expectation of what they expect in a gaming environment, I think has, been incredible to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And technology has played such a huge piece. I couldn't agree more. And there's still a lot of people that are holding on to that paper process and those big drawing rooms. But I think just my thoughts, and I'm wondering your thoughts on this. I think some of the values of marketing still stay the same. And that is just staying to value of the customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've worked on projects where we probably rush the technology, or maybe if you look at something like an app, I think a lot of casino operators are guilty of, they launch an app, but then from the user case, it's like, this is just a regurgitation of your website, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no true value proposition. So in some ways, I feel like we've done a great job of interweaving technology, and there's great use cases of where it's actually helped the customer experience. But I think one thing that we always have to remain cognizant of is there a real value proposition of this technology, whether it helps the team members, whether it's a better user experience for the guests, whether it saves time, whatever it may be, and making sure that you have that endpoint as you roll out this technology, because I've seen where that's felt flat, so to speak. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, you have to start with the consumer and the end goal in mind. Or yeah, I mean, and sometimes I think, because we are always evolving and changing, I don't think this is, particular to our industry. I think probably a lot of people have this as, oh, it's new and I better try it. Should the conversation be like, how can this evolve us and how can this make us better? And sometimes the answer maybe we don't need it, and sometimes it is like we need it yesterday. But are we asking the right questions to get the right piece out to our customer?
Yeah, absolutely. Erica, pivoting a little bit, if I have my math's correct, you have 3 casinos and resorts under the Choctaw brand, 4 casinos. Just a little peek under the hood. How are you able to successfully manage so many different properties from a brand marketing resources standpoint and still make sure that each property kind of has their own experience? Just if you wouldn't mind, take that question where you want, but I think that is a good learning lesson for those who maybe they manage one property under their brand, or maybe it's several in your case.
Yeah.
Kind of how do you go about, strategically make sure that every property has kind of its own unique look, feel, or maybe it doesn't? Just curious to know your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, that like, peeling back the onion, that goes back to who we want to be, right? And so we made a conscious decision, and, we made it together with our operators that, we were going to plant our flag and we were all going to be called the same. The branding was going to be the same, and, set really tight brand standards around how your property says and feels and does to distinguish between the other properties, whether that's a travel plaza, a casino too, or a casino. Choctaw is always the standard. And then you can expect X level of maybe hospitality, cleanliness, things like that. Things are super important, safety, but then to start to the marketing side of that, how do we brand it? We set a very, if you've been in our markets, all of our branding looks the same, but the look and feel of the messaging may be a little different. And that's done very concentrated, right? Like we've tried a few different things, and we know now one resort can't be treated exactly like the other resort, but they can have the same expectations. So they can have the same look, and then that you're going to get X at one resort and Y at the other. And we've really built this whole brand architecture to speak to how we want them to look, feel, be, and see. And how can we elevate that to the next level in each pattern, right? Because they all have their own goals and evolution that they want to achieve. So it's a long-winded answer to say, it was a lot of gritty work to get to a lot of like visually appealing, consistent, concentrated work. And really the important thing was that everyone knew the answer, right? From the operators to the marketers to the database, everyone knew, hey, this is who we're going to be. And we're going to be this way consistently every time. And I think for a brand, that's the hardest part, is deciding who you're going to be and what you're going to say.
Yeah. And I think that sounds so fundamental, but I think it's a great point. Is, if I'm hearing you correctly, you really have to understand what your differentiation is, what your product is. Mm-hmm. And we talk about that a lot here, is bridging the gap between letting marketers think like operators, but also operators to think like marketers, mm-hmm. right? And to truly understand what is your position, what is your product, and then make sure the messaging aligns with that so that you're not misleading people. So that it's a seamless brand, right? Your brand is ultimately what the guest experiences, because otherwise it's a lie, or it's just, there's no trust with that brand if you're saying something that doesn't align with the operational experience.
That's right. We talk a lot about delivery, right? Because a casino is a casino is a casino, but what is the experience you're saying you're going to deliver on? And if you're not delivering on that, exactly like you said, we're diluting the brand at that point, because we're making it something it's not and something we can't deliver on. And so that's something that, we spend a lot of time talking about, because it is important, and it's important to all facets, right? There's nothing that's not touched by that.
Yep. 100%. Erica, I'm going to jump to a segment here we call the bigger picture. For those listening via podcast, please go to nextlevelcasinocareers.com. You can see this video, but I'll kind of talk to the pictures here. So I'll show the picture. We'll just kind of riff. So I want to start with something I think you're passionate about. I heard you actually talk on a panel, maybe 2019, 2018, somewhere in that range, about the role of influencer marketing. I know Choctaw has been one of the people at the forefront of utilizing influencer marketing to really be an extension of their brand and to really break the clutter from a social media perspective. If you wouldn't mind, just kind of talk to us about the evolution on that front and how it's been important as we think about how we connect with consumers and overall your brand strategy.
Oh yeah. So this is I could talk when it's brand, sports, or influencers, I can probably talk about all day. So, you've hit a sweet spot. I think what's important, Kyle, is to also peel that back a little bit, right? Like the pictures you see there are the pictures from current, but you go back to 2016, 2017, when influencers was relatively a unknown term at that point, and definitely an unknown media marketing avenue and strategy. And I remember coming, to our leadership and saying, hey, this is out of the box. This is really odd. And you may not even know what it is, but let's talk about this a little bit. And will you trust us to try something? And it kind of started from there. And we gained trust not only with our consumers, but we really had to build trust with what this was and what this investment was internally as well. And they've kind of been along for that ride. And I'll tell you, the influencer market has changed exponentially over these past 5 and 6 years, and the growth of that market and using it as a medium is also huge. We believe in our influencer strategy because, back to basics, a brand is something that you want to affiliate with. It's something that you want to connect with as a consumer. And, when people watch and have relationships with these content creators, with these influencers, with these bloggers, they're listening and learning about good, bad, whatever the case may be, about what they are doing. And then they believe in it and buy into it because they're buying into it. And, the most important thing is that it's not transactional, right? Like, we're not just bringing them and putting them on okay, take this content. We want it to look and feel like this. I mean, we bring them in and we immerse them in the culture of what the tribe does. We immerse them in the culture of that the casinos at a tribal state give back to communities. They give back. And we're building long-term relationships with them. So if people are just seeing them one time, they're like, oh, well, that was a paid event. We're working with content creators and building a network where we're seeing them maybe 4 or 5 times over a couple of years. And they're really building, cadence and conversation with their audience. And their audience is starting to trust that, well, if they love it, we would love it because it's a place for me.
I love that. And I took so many good notes there. I think immerse them. And I love that you talked about it not being transactional. I think, right. I think we think about influencer marketing. It's like, okay, here's these names, here's these followers.
Yeah. I pay you to do this. I pay you X to get this.
100%. I think that's something we can all learn from what you just said there is how can you really build a relationship, just like any partnership, that beyond just the posts and the captions and the things that they do from a content perspective, that they're actually going to be buzzing about your property afterwards. Yeah. Right. And then also they're going to probably hit you up again when they want to stay, and that creates a relationship. And if you do that over and over again, now you have a whole army of influencers.
Yeah. And then your ROI is being exponentially better, right? Like, your billboard can't tell you they want to come back and stay with you and do it for, no cost, just because they want to celebrate a birthday and they know we're going to treat them right. So, I mean, the ROI can be giving, and, values can be growing, not on a one-to-one basis, but really on a larger scale.
Erica, any tips you want to provide on how you launch this? Because you said, like, you put yourself out there, you and your team, like, hey, we think this is worth doing, right? I think a lot of times as marketers, the ideas portion is great, but you actually were able to execute it. Any tips for anything? It could be influencer marketing or some new avenue of rolling something within your marketing strategy. Any tips to how I can successfully get a new idea over the finish line?
Well, what I was saying, we touched on a little bit before we were recording, but I think this is almost a little bit of career, visualization, not even, maybe marketing. But if there are things that excite you, right, like hosting a podcast, working with and doing influencer management and engagement, doing entertainment shows or events or festivals, build a case for that. Build a case for why other industries or consumers or markets or competition is doing that, and then show why or how you could do it. I think, it's important for us not to only look at gaming, but to look all across the industry based on what's selling, what's working, how are people consuming media and knowledge. And I think, as marketers, you're always going to be curious about new things, and it's our job to test those out and see if they work. One of the funny, so I took that answer a little bit different direction. So.
No, absolutely. No. I love that response. And Erica, one more thought here, because I could talk about influencer marketing a lot too, just like you can. But when you think about the selection process, because there's lots of avenues, right? Some teams are scrappy and will literally search hashtags and find them organically. And then others use third-party agencies to kind of find influencers. What's your sweet sauce to kind of the selection process of bringing in influencers that drives value?
Yeah, I can say this because we tell it to them, so they know it's no secret. But we use a mix of both, but we are honestly stalkers. We know, before we decide we're going to work with them, we know what they're saying. We know if they're, if they get on and they act one way one day when they're trying to sell a product, and they're being super inauthentic another day when they're just themselves. And those are the things that we look for, away from the analytics and the data side. Of course, like, we pull that to even know if we're going to be interested to start with. But we, once we really decided, hey, we want to go after these, we look at everything, and we look at them, probably for a little bit longer before we pull the trigger on that to make sure it's a good fit. I mean, it's been in the news everywhere, the Adidas and the Kanye, like why people should navigate relationships and faces of brands really delicately. And we've learned a lot, right? I think that's another thing with starting. You're never going to be best on your first try, but you're going to continue to develop it and get better every time. So don't be afraid to start.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I like that you hit on the relationship end too, because you want to be excited about that relationship and having that person represent your product or your brand, but it's got to be the same way, right? And I think we've seen influencers where it's like, it's clear they're just here for the paycheck.
Yes.
So switching gears to something I know you're passionate about too is brand. When we started the podcast, I mentioned, I feel like Choctaw does a great job of breaking the clutter. So these are just some examples I've pulled. I see you and I raise you, not merely expanded, elevated. I think in the simplest form, I think of two things when I think of Choctaw, just as an outsider. I see bold and I see consistency. Mm-hmm. And you could take this question where you want, but like so often you guys break the clutter by doing that. Like at this example here, I know you got PR coverage, have better luck with us, right? To someone on your team, whether that was you or someone you work with, had that idea.
That was a little stunt. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just
that paid off.
Yeah, it's just amazing, right? You saw that as a canvas, an opportunity to break the clutter, and you did. So the floor is yours. Just what is your process and how do you kind of develop this brand, and any insights you want to share with this audience as people are all in the same business of wanting to break the clutter and have a brand that has some residency. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'll take it where you want.
I'll start with the core, right? Like, so when you see this very gradient color, whether it's this green or this yellow, green, blue, whether it's this teal, purple, pink, one of the things we realized when I got here is like, we didn't have a marketing problem, right? Like our marketing was everywhere. That's the top left up there is, was our old logo, was our old identity when we opened one of our towers, I think in 2014, 2016. But it was never consistent, right? So one of the first things we did, being in the Dallas DMA as our largest, backyard marketplace, was that we had to make sure people were seeing that message and automatically thinking that's Choctaw, getting a brand behind that. And so, like I talked about a little earlier, we were sticklers on that. Like, this is everything that goes out, everything that sees an eye has a visual footprint that is consistent, connected, and current. And I think that has paid off tons because you see it in the market, and before you even know the message, it's Choctaw. And then I think, you only have such a short window to open that up to people. Now they know, okay, that's Choctaw. Now I can absorb the message. I'm not trying to figure out if is that another casino? Is that an entertainment venue? They know this is Choctaw and this is what the message they want to get across. Once we establish that, we can start having more fun and start elevating our message and doing some stunts like this that pay off in PR, that pay off, and taking some risk, right? And then I think it evolves into the look and the feel and the editorial vibe of it. And, we try to, again, pull things that we see working in other industries and pull them into gaming. And, we take a lot of, inspiration from those things. And so letting people know that we're opening expansion with a very slight move of hand with the cards, as you see it with the tinsel behind her, the expansions in the girl's sunglasses, just a playful, cheeky play on brand visualization. But I think the overall message is we were consistent and we were unapologetic about being consistent. Whether I just spoke on a panel about entertainment, and entertainers with ad match, right? Like they think they want to have this color and this font, and we just said, listen, if that's a non-negotiable, we'll put you in radio, we'll put you in non-visible things, but our ad mat will make you beautiful, but we need to know that you're agreeable to our ad mat to sell your show.
Absolutely. That's so many things. Attention is an asset. And I think you all do a great job of understanding that, and consistency plays a part of that too. because it's the same thing on the operators and the experience end too. Is if you want to obtain a vibe or an experience, it's consistency, right? No matter what your brand proposition or your product proposition is, there's consistency involved. And it's totally the same on the marketing end as well. And I think you're a great use case of how to do that and how to do it effectively, both consistency and bold creative. And I just love these examples here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that at a core, that's what we owe to our operators, right? Like we owe them a way to do all the great things they're doing in a visual representative way that tells them this is what you can guarantee and this is how you can trust us, to be a great partner with you, and to get the job done. And I think sometimes that's just also, it has a little bit of education and learning curve to it, when you're saying like, hey, we're giving you an answer to X problem, right? Like marketing's always solving problems. That's our core job. If you have this, here's the answer. And I think branding's no different.
Yep, absolutely. And I could just feel the curiosity and the problem solving nature through this interview, Erica. I know something else you're passionate about is sports and partnerships. So I just want to touch on that for a minute, is the role of partners and be able to leverage not only just the advertising, there's so many different facets of a sports partnership, but how has this played a role in your overall marketing strategy and helping your overall guest experience as well?
This goes into an all-encompassing marketing strategy where we want to be where the people are, not to quote Ariel or whatever, but, we want to be where you are. And we want to care about the things that you care about. And we want to know that if you care about that, we care about them and we'll be there. And so when you trust the experience you're getting at an activation, at an event, that you can trust that same experience is going to come back when you're ready to visit us. And I think so much of that, when you're trying to go after new acquisition, is gaining trust without knowing, a person-to-person connection, right? And I always say, like, when we're doing this, we're casting the net for the operator, we're casting the net for the player development person, and we may hit on all of that, but we're going to build these super strong relationships where the partner understands what our goal is and what our goals are, whether it's for the year, the quarter, or the term of the partnership. And then we're going to build into that in a super authentic, connecting way through sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's just so many different examples. And once again, I just know Choctaw does a great job of leveraging their sports assets. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more as far as just there's just so much opportunity there, and being where the people are. Sports connect us in ways that other partnerships can't.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what's funny is as a core person, I'm probably not the biggest sports fan, but I'm the biggest brand fan, right? So I always want to know, hey, does this make sense for us? So, it's a little bit different about my approach, which is always funny when we get with sports people and they're like, hey, did you watch this? Or you watch? And I was like, no, but I watched the signs and I watched how much we were on the visibility and the presence. And so I think I take a little bit of a different approach to sports partnerships because, I'm not the diehard fan that some are, but I am absolutely diehard for those partners we partner with, and those relationships can lead to so many other opportunities beyond just the contracted assets. I mean, we've done things with our partners that we probably could have never dreamed of because they understood our goals and we understood theirs, and we got really creative.
Yeah, I've talked about it on a prior episode with Corey Norkin, who's the Senior Vice President of Global Partnerships with the Dodgers. And same thing, like the flexibility of a sports partnership in particular is just so unique because they will work with you as long as you allow them on that creative flexibility. And when I say creative, I'm not talking just advertising and marketing, but really holistic integrations in ways you couldn't even think of. So
yeah, and kudos to you guys. You guys do also an incredible job. I mean, we see it. We look and see what you guys are doing too, and you guys really manage those partnerships and relationships at an extreme level. And so you're also one to watch.
I appreciate. I know the team appreciates that. So thank you, Erica. Last picture I have here. It feels like Choctaw is always growing, expanding in one form or the other. Choctaw Landing. Just take this question where you want. Just if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about this project, but then two, kind of just how you lean into growth, and it feels like you're always expanding or taking on a new project. Just any lessons there?
Yeah. This is, for one, it's super rewarding because it does feel like we're always expanding, whether that's tribal services and, helping other divisions outside of gaming grow, or doing projects like this and the expansion that we just, we opened a year ago. It's super rewarding and fulfilling to know that there's always something new to think about, to capitalize on, to say, how are we going to market that? And Choctaw Landing is actually something that is completely new to our portfolio. It's a resort located in Hochatown, Oklahoma, close to Broken Bow. Really has become a destination retreat area for many people in the surrounding states. And we're building a resort there for entertainment, for leisure. And gaming won't be at the forefront because there's other goals of that. Will gaming be there? Of course, but so will shopping and eating and entertainment and cultural training and cultural experience and art, and truly a retreat. And so, getting to work on something like that flexes your brain away from gaming to say, like, what can we do that we know we do really well in gaming, and turn it into something that's more resort style. There's just so many synergies that lend themselves to that, and that we can, take an opportunity to grow and evolve. And this project here is just, super passion point to a lot of the community. A lot of our leaders at Choctaw actually were raised in this area of Oklahoma. And so it's super personal to them. And, so it gives you a sense of pride when you're doing something where people grew up, and now, they get to give back to those communities and grow those communities and employ people there. It's the most rewarding thing.
I love that. I love the rewarding. I love how you hit on two aspects of it. It's not only the tribe and just knowing what those efforts are doing for the tribe, but also the community in general. But also, I like that you talked about it's a privilege to work for an organization that is expanding, because you know that you're adding more team members, you're providing for families. And some people might look at that as a burden, like, oh, more stuff to do. But you look at it as a privilege to be able to do that. And I love that you hit on that.
Yeah. We tell that to like all of our new team members. It is a privilege to work here. It's a privilege to get to experience tribal culture, get introduced to that, let them bring you in and give back in a way that's not, standard business minded, right? We're giving back to children and education and values and things that are, like, I know you guys also see, is, changing lives and changing communities. And so that's something where, when you go into gaming, you may not think of that as the goal, but it definitely is the end goal as you get more ingrained in what you're accomplishing.
Yeah. And I think that's something I've learned over these last 2 years, because we've done surveys. We've done the Great Places to Work survey, which we were fortunate to get for the second year in a row.
Congrats.
And part of that survey, one of the categories is like community work. And I think, and I've seen articles on this, the increase of people wanting to work for an organization that makes an impact in the community keeps getting more and more and more. And man, what a great industry to help in those efforts, because there's just a lot there that goes into the community that I feel like a lot of people don't know about. So
yeah, well, I mean, and that's just it, right? We're working in a time where we have more generations in the workplace than ever before, and the things people care about are vastly different. But the newest generation entering the workplace, one of their main goals is cause marketing, and what are you doing to give back to things they care about and buy into. And I think that's going to be a considerable marketing, not challenge, but opportunity in the years to come, right? How do we evolve those things and make them more connected so your associates feel that we care about the things they care about?
Yep, absolutely. That's a perfect pivot into what gets you excited about the future as you look out beyond 2023 and beyond, as you think about your career, just in general, the opportunities out there. What gets you excited as you look ahead?
Probably a lot of the unknown, like, Instagram influencers. They weren't around when I started this journey. So, what is going to be around in the next 10 years that we're going to get to, have the opportunity to learn about and to become experts in and, evolve into for our operation. I think, gaming is at a revitalization time with iGaming and cashless and sports betting and all of those things that are, on the forefront that we're going to, have a front row seat to. to how do we do them and do them well, and make a name for either your organization or the people you're providing for or the properties you're at. And I think it's going to continually evolve, and we don't even know, we maybe can't even dream about what's next, but we know it's coming, and we know it's going to be incredible. So
yeah, I think that's a good question. So this question's hard, so I'll give you a minute. Maybe you have an answer right away, but if you wouldn't mind, fill in the blank for me. So 2030, Erica's going to say this. Erica's going to say, in 2022, the thing we underestimated the most was what?
that is a good question. 20, 38 years. So maybe it is, I want to say like it's the cashless and it's the iGaming space, right? I think everything is turning towards that. And, I think we are preparing for it, but I think, do we even know the tip of the iceberg of what that's creating?
Yeah, I think it's a great answer. And I feel like just looking, from a macro perspective, frankly, our industry's behind on that front, right? I mean, everywhere you go, you can experience anything without cash or without sometimes even a wallet, right? With mobile, and for whatever reason, it's almost 2022, and we're still kind of behind on that. I know we're making leaps in there, but just macro level, we're still a little behind. So I think that's a great answer.
Thanks.
I know we were chatting earlier, but you mentioned that you have, I know you're married, you have 2 kids. How does Erica, we've talked a lot about careers and work and things of that nature, but what do you do to unplug, or how do you kind of keep yourself, refreshed as you think about the busy industry that we're in, always growing, always expanding? What do you do to kind of recharge for yourself?
The people I work with always laugh at me because I'm always on the go here, but I truly love to travel, right? Because that energizes me to see new things, to experience new places. So really when I want to unwind, it's, taking a trip or going somewhere new or experiencing somewhere new, because that really re-energizes my creativity to bring me back into have we thought about this? Have we tried this? Look how awesome this looks. I'm always capturing.
That's what you said it before I did. I was like, I bet when Erica goes on vacation, she still kind of works. You might not be hitting up your email, but I'm sure if you see something, you're take a picture of that or something like that.
Yeah. And that's not work to me, right? That's creativity at its best. How do we see this thing and make it better?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're, because this is all about careers and putting people in position of success. For when you interview people, kind of what do you love seeing in hiring candidates, and maybe a tip or two on how to bring that out in an interview?
One of my coworkers now tells the story, and I didn't realize it's a laughable moment now, but she's like, I will never forget this, and I will always bring this story up. But when I was interviewing, I said, on the scale of Andy Warhol to a saltine, how creative are you? And where does your energy lie on creative importance? And she's like, I've never had a question like that. It's never thrown me off. And so I think when you're hiring for unique positions, I guess throw some wacky stuff in there. But more seriously, I try to just get to know why they're interested at a core level. Why are you interested in working for tribes, big organizations like ours? It's really peeling back an onion, right? And you have to know that once they get in, they're going to continue to learn and evolve, and really that curiosity and need for relationships, and the importance of those is something I look for.
Yeah, absolutely. And just being transparent to create that relationship, to understand what their pool is, that way that that you're aligned. I think that's great. A subject or hobby you nerd out on. Is there anything that maybe people might not know about you, or is there something that you kind of nerd out
on? Well, I mean, this is going to be ridiculous, but I love influencers. I love, that's actually a hobby of mine. I love, dabbling in that, seeing how those trends work. There's a couple good companies based in Dallas that I like reading about, like Reward Style, Like to Know It is, really revolutionized this influencer space. And then I watch a lot of cartoons with my kids. I'm not really a movie watcher, but I do what they do and do what they like to do. And so I try to, when I'm not working, immerse myself in things that energize them.
I love it. I love it. Erica, I want to thank you for taking the time today. I honestly could do this conversation another hour because I too could nerd out on some of the same topics that we talked about. But, I want to be respectful of your time. So I got one final question we ask everybody on this show, which is next level casino careers. If somebody wants to take their career to the next level, what are 3 tips you'd provide somebody that if they started applying now, that would help them take their career to the next level? So what would those 3 tips be for you?
Build relationships, stay curious, and don't, be open to not saying no. Be open to saying yes, because people may see your value in it more than you see in yourself at the moment.
There you have it. Erica, once again, thank you for joining the show. Thank you for providing your insight and your story. I think this audience has found it valuable, and I know I did. And I look forward to hopefully doing it again with you sometime.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. And I love that you guys are doing this, and it's a great platform. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Check out more episodes on nextlevelcasinocareers.com.